All right, good evening, Southside Everywhere family. I am John Merriweather, the online minister for the Southside Everywhere campus. I want to welcome you to the MMR. You know what it is. It's 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Monday night. And yes, we're a little bit in the dark here, trying to see if I can help the lighting out. Deneen is out of town. And my daughter, I didn't think she had rehearsal, but she did. So we're going to do what we can do to make it possible because we didn't want to leave you without a good word on a good night. Come on, somebody. Sister Graham, good to see you here on the MMR. This is the Monday Message Recall where we recap the sermon that was delivered this past Sunday at the Southside Church of Christ, Durham, North Carolina. Um, 27707. You can join us online or on premise. So you know how we do it. Go ahead and call your mama them, your cousin them, your daddy them, your friends and them, all their names. Share this video out as we recap the sermon because I believe that there is some help that they may receive from this message that was delivered yesterday for the Southside Church of Christ. And we know that a good word is a good word any day, but a good word is only good if you apply it to your life. So, all right, good to see you. Good to see you, Hendersonville. All right, all right, all right. That looks like my sister. Good to have you here on this evening, sis. All right, look, y'all. You know we're still in homecoming celebration mode, and we had another dynamic speaker on yesterday by the name of Samuel Bailey from the Cedar Valley Church of Christ in Dallas, Texas. So he came and brought a word. So I'll need you, if you, for my note takers, go ahead and drop in the chat the scripture that he used on yesterday and also the title of the sermon because he gave us some help on yesterday. He gave us enough help on yesterday, but we still are going to celebrate. All right, Sister Graham is in the house and she has dropped it in there. He asked us the question yesterday, how long? How long? That was the title of the sermon. You know, with a title like that, it's got to be hidden. And so we're going to go ahead, and it came from 1 Samuel chapter 16. We're going to start at verse 1 and where he says, and I'm reading from the NIV version, and it says, the Lord said to Samuel, how long will you mourn for Saul since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I am sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king. But Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me. The Lord said, take a heifer with you and say, I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what to do. You are to anoint for me the one I indicate. Samuel did what the Lord said when he arrived at Bethlehem. When he arrived at Bethlehem, the elders of the town trembled. When they met him, they asked, do you come in peace? Samuel replied, yes, in peace. I have come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come to the sacrifice with me. Then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab and said, surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord. I'm going to give verse 7. But the Lord said to Samuel, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. All right, Sister McDougal in the house. Sister Burt, good evening. Glad to have you here. So look, y'all, yesterday, brother Sam Bailey got into it and kicked us off. He said that he started off with the conversation and said that, have you ever prayed for something, but then when you got it, you didn't like what you got? When you got it in your hand, you've been waiting, you've been anticipating, you've been praying for it. And when you got it in your hand, you showed up and you said, this ain't it. This ain't that. This isn't the thing. It didn't shape up the way that I expected to. You got the job, but the job isn't hitting like you thought it was going to hit. You got the man, you got the woman, but they ain't acting right. You know, it comes with some heavier weight that you thought. You got the family now, but now you got the responsibility. You got the house, but you got a lot of house and you got some other things that you got to take care of besides the house. You see, you done worked out and now you don't want you got the help, but now you got to realize you got to maintain it. You got to keep it up. You got the ministry, but the people aren't following you like you thought they were going to follow you. You realize that there's a struggle behind the blessing, and that's what happened here because Israel, remember, Israel was asking, they was begging, they was pleading, they was kept on praying to God. We want a king, not because we need a king. We want a king because we want to be like everybody else. They wanted to keep up with the Joneses. And whenever you keep up with the Joneses, you got to be able to run that pace. And sometimes that pace is faster than you're capable of running. And what happened was Saul was not the king that they needed. Saul was the king that they wanted because they already had the king that they needed because the king that they needed was God. And God said, I am your king. And they said, no, because people can't see you. People can't see God. They wanted the prestige and the recognition. And sometimes when we get caught up wanting the prestige and the recognition, we get a whole lot of things that we don't care for and don't serve us and don't prosper us. And so now they come to the situation that Saul gave them a whole lot of heartache, gave them a whole lot of headache. Saul was not aligned with the will of God. Saul started doing things his own way. Saul always wanted to bend the rules. Saul wanted to keep the best of everything, of all the conquests that he had for himself. And now that they had it, and now that he brought all this hardship upon them, the Spirit of God was removed off of Saul. And God said, I'm going to choose the king that I want to choose. I'm going to choose the king that I need for my kingdom to lead my people. And so now we're reaching a situation where when God told Samuel and let Samuel know that I'm going to choose another king, Samuel is now downtrodden. Samuel is now feeling rejected and feeling sad. Why? Because he chose. He helped to anoint Saul. He poured into Saul. He has invested time and talent into Saul, and now his heart is grieving because not only is God rejecting Saul, but also that he realized that now Saul is going to be a threat if he learns about that he is to anoint another king. Because if Saul realizes and finds out that God's glory is not on him, remember, God will either get glory from you or get glory off of you. And if Saul finds out about this, Saul's not going to be happy. Saul's going to be frustrated. Saul's going to be angry. And now he's coming to the point where he's going to have to face the consequences of trying to appoint another king. But how many of us know that when God comes in with a plan, God's already got it worked out? We just got to follow the path. So he let Samuel know, you ain't got to worry about nothing. You ain't don't have to worry about your life. I already got a plan, and this is how you do it. You go and stand in there to make a sacrifice and tell them that you're going to make a sacrifice, but you're going to select, and I'm going to reveal to you who is going to be the next king of Israel. And so what Brother Belly wanted us to understand is just like Samuel, how many of us are mourning a situation that God is trying to move us from? Remember, God moves, and when God moves, we need to be lockstep with God. We need to move like he moves, just like that. We need to keep up with the pace that God has. Sister Ware, hey, how you doing? Good to have you here on the MMR on tonight. And so he says, Brother Belly wanted us to understand, when God has made a move, sometimes we are still hung up on and hanging on to what God has moved on from. And sometimes, listen to me closely here, sometimes God is moving us from a dead situation. God is moving us from a dead time. And sometimes we want to still remain at the grave, but we got to walk away from the situation. Why? Because it's no longer going to serve us. It doesn't mean that we don't remember it. It doesn't mean that we don't look back on it. It doesn't mean that we don't mourn it, but we have to realize, just like it says in Ecclesiastes, there's a time and season for everything, and there's a time to mourn, but there's also a time to move forward. And we have to remember that God is calling many of us to move forward, but we still standing still. And if we're standing still and God is moving forward, we're going to soon find ourselves alone, because God is not preventing us from moving with him. He is not abandoning us. We are choosing to stay attached to the past. And so we have to remember that the past, what Brother Bailey said, the past is not a place of residence. It is only a place of reference. We can think back. We can learn from it. We can say, I wish I would have known then what I know now, but we have to live in the here and now and keep moving forward. So we have to let go. I see it in the comment. Let go and let God lead us to where he wants us to go. But back to the text, we have to stop, as he says we got to stop regurgitating on things of the past. Why? Because ain't no nutrients in that. Ain't no nutrients in that. It's not going to fill us up. It is something. Some of us have some disgusting, toxic habits of going back and reliving situations or replaying them and treating them like they just happened yesterday. We are still angry, frustrated about some losses we've taken in the past. But I want to encourage you on tonight that if you keep on replaying that event in your mind, then you seek some help so you can move forward and open your door to receive the blessing that God is trying to put upon you on this evening. So let's move past. And if you can't move past, get some help. That's why God has blessed people with talents to help us to deal in a healthy way with our past so we can now experience the blessings of the now. And so as we look at this, we want to remember that we cannot be wishing and hoping for what happened in yesteryear, because yesteryear served its time and it's time to move on to something new. And that's why some of us cannot be used by God, because we're too much attached to the past when God is trying to do a new thing. The scripture says, behold, I do a new thing. Will you not notice it? We have to notice when God is doing something new in our lives. So we remember that he dropped this on us. Some people are so attached to the past, they want to make the past look like the present right now. Case in point, he says there's a saying going around. He says that some people say 50 is the new 20. No, I'm I think it was like Jenny said, 50 is not the new 20. It's the same old 50. At your age, at your age, act with the wisdom that God has blessed you with. Act with the lessons that you have learned. Don't go out here trying to look like something that you're not, because people will take notice and will not, and realize that you're trying to fit in a space that's not necessarily your place. So go ahead. I got the gray going right now. I'll be 50, Lord's willing, next year, and I'm not going to try to act at 50 what I was acting like at 25 and 30. Why? Because I got more better days ahead of me than I have behind me. What do you mean? Because I'm going to use the wisdom that I learned to operate wiser, smarter, and better so I can enjoy this next leg of my life to the fullest of my ability. And so let me get back on point here. We got to remember that God had heard the cries of Israel. God had heard them crying when they was in Egypt. God had heard them, and he had delivered them Moses. And Moses had brought them out of Egypt. And Moses was a reluctant preacher, as he said, but Moses led them out of Egypt and into the wilderness, and in the wilderness where they had lack of resources. But God chose the right man to get them to the point where they were ready to cross into the promised land. But to get into the promised land, that was not going to be Moses' job. They needed Joshua. Joshua, who was the warrior. Joshua, who was the young man. Joshua, who had the strength. Joshua, who knew how to strategically plan to take the land that God was blessing them with. And what are you saying that for, Brother Meriwether? We got to realize the move of God. And sometimes we look back to the same people to get us to a different space. But the space that God is calling us to get into, the space that God is calling us to get into, will not be from the same leadership. We need somebody else to lead us there. And that doesn't mean that we diminish the accomplishments of the past, but we have to realize when God is doing a new move and trying to pull us into a new way. And so what Brother Bailey wanted us to understand is wanted us to make sure that we're not lost in transition. And some people get lost in transition because they're looking back into the past, but they can't transition to the new thing. And so as we look to move into the new thing, we got to trust and we got to obey God, and we got to look at how God is doing something in a different way. And what Moses had learned in the text scene, Moses had to realize when he got to the Red Sea to get the people across the Red Sea, had to realize nobody walked on dry land before in the middle of a sea. And what he had to realize is that God had been preparing him the whole time for that moment. And what he did, he had given Moses a series of victories to prepare him for the greatest challenge. He had helped Moses. He had shown Moses the burning bush. He had sent the plagues onto Egypt. He had Moses battle the sorcerers of Egypt and overcame each and every one of them. But here's the thing, Brother Bailey shared with us that public performance is not the time to shine. It is when we practice in private, because private practice prepares us for public performance. And by that, he says, remember, when God had shown Moses all these things to prepare him, there was an instance where Moses, where Pharaoh and his magicians were facing off against Moses, and Moses threw down his rod. And when he threw down his rod, it turned into a snake. And then Pharaoh had his magicians throw down their rods, and it turned into a double-headed snake. But Moses' snake ate their snake up. And then God told him, was like, pick up your rod. He told Moses to pick up the rod while it was still a snake. He said, pick it up by the tail. And now you don't pick up a snake by the tail because it can double back and bite you. But Moses, without fear, went ahead and picked it up. And when he picked it up, when he touched it, it turned back into a rod. What are you saying, Brother Meriwether? Sometimes God has already given us the tool in our hand, and he's telling us to use what he's already blessed us with. But because we're fearful, because it don't look like what we want it to look like at the moment, we won't touch it, we won't use it. And then what happens is we're trying to ask God for more resources, but he's already given us the resources that we need. He says, use what we have in our hand. How many people? I want somebody to say in the chat, use what's in my hand. Use what's in my hand. You asking for a new job. Are you doing your job that you currently have to the best of your ability? Are you using it for the opportunity? Are you learning what you need to learn so you can go on to the next position? What are you doing with the friendships? What are you doing with your relationships? Are you nurturing? Are you pouring into them the way that you need to pour into them so that they can have you and help you so that you can reach the next level? Come on, we're going to use what's in our hand. And then he says, we have to be ready to make the journey. We have to be ready. As I said, when God is making a move, we have to prepare ourselves to make the move and journey with God. We can't keep looking back. You know what happens. You know how God feels about people that keep on looking back to the past, that keeps on looking back to how things used to be. Jesus said, whoever puts their hand to the plow and continues to work and continues to look back is not worthy, is not fit of the kingdom of heaven. If we go back a little bit further, you remember the story of Lot's wife, how God had delivered them from Sodom and Gomorrah. And then she had to look back to that city. But when she looked back, God had told them, don't look back. There's nothing there for you. I have delivered you from the sinfulness and the wickedness. And here's the problem. She looked back. It wasn't that she just looked back, but it was the gaze that she gave it. She gave a look back because she desired to be back there. She did not want to leave. And many of us do not want to leave the accomplishments of the past, but we got to keep moving forward. We ain't turning back. Somebody is saying that right now in this campaign season, that they ain't turning back. But we got to realize that God is pulling us forward. And when God is pulling us forward, he doesn't pull us forward to lesser. Come on, somebody. He pulls us forward to greater. And we got to realize that God is trying to do some abundant, some powerful things. He's trying to give us new ministries. He's trying to give us new blessings. He's trying to give us new attitudes. He's trying to give us renewed strength and renewed energy. But if we keep looking back, we will never be able to step into what God is calling us into. And so we have to remember that we're not looking back. We got to remember also that the church in the kingdom does not revolve around us. We may be doing some good work. We may be doing some good ministry. We may be involved in a lot of things. We may have notoriety. We may be very good at what we do, but we have to understand that if God calls us from labor to reward, that the church will go on. God is not going to send his son back if we pass away to say, hey, that's it. They passed away. No more work to be done. Go get them. No, God is going to continue. God will deliver. God will raise up somebody else to keep the work going. And we have to realize when God is raising up somebody new. And when God raises up somebody new, we should be there to help and to support and to engage with them and not to hinder them. Because you know that another thing that God does not like, he doesn't like people that hinder his ministry. When people start to murmur, God starts to turning stuff off in people's lives. You murmur against the man of God, God will start turning off your health. You start murmuring against the man of God and the work of the church, God will turn off your finances. You start murmuring against the work of the ministry, God will turn off things in your house and turn off the peace and turn off the joy in your house. And you try to figure out why everything's going wrong. When things are going wrong, because you begin to murmur. Why? Because God is trying to move forward and we're still trying to hang behind. And so he asked us, how long will we try to do things our own way? How long will we try to still lean to our own understanding and not take God and trust God at his word? We got to remember that God has planned this thing from the beginning, and God is not trying to plan anything that will harm us. God is going to plan things that help us, that benefit us. And we look at this, and we have to remember that God tells us, be anxious for nothing, but we have to continue to pray and submit supplications. Why? Because God has us. How many of us know on this evening that God has us? And if you don't know, it's all right. We will continue to pray, ask for prayer, keep studying the word, so you know that God has you. And I know you're facing some things that you've never faced before, but look at the track record of God. And when you trust the track record of God, you can see that God didn't let you down then, and God will not let you down now. We used to sing a song, he's brought me too far to turn around now, and it's too late to go back, and he's brought us to a place too far for us to go back to Egypt in our mindset. So we have to remember that also God is sovereign. God does not have to confer with us to do anything. He is God, and God will be God all by himself, but our job is to trust God. And the best example of trusting God would be the example of Job. And y'all remember, Job was a man, we sipped on this on yesterday morning, that Job was a man that trusted God, that worshiped God, that honored God, that glorified God. But he was brought to a situation where God allowed him to be tested and tried because the devil had a bone to pick with God and wanted to say, I bet you that if you remove the hedge, if you remove the blessing away from Job, then Job will curse you and he will die. He has no reason to not trust you, God, because you have blessed him his whole life. And something like we said on the SIP, we got to remember sometimes the battle and the conflict in our life isn't about us, it's above us. And what I mean above us, it is a conflict that's going on in heaven against the powers of evil and the powers of darkness. And we just happen to be part of the situation. But if we trust God, we know that God will bring us out and God will provide. And we know we have lost some things, but Job lost everything. But everything that Job lost, God gave him that and more. Why? Because Job trusted God. And even when Job, if we look at it and say, well, Job asked God some questions, yes, but Job asked God some questions and God got him back right. He's like, yeah, God, I'm tripping, I'm messing up, I need to get back in line, I need to know my role, and I need to respect you as sovereign. So we have to remember that how long will we look at the past and try to lean on our own way? We got to remember that God's way is the best way for us, and he will never let us down. And we have to realize that God and control freaks don't go together. You cannot want to be in full control of your life and be a child of God. You will struggle. It will be hard. and it'll always be a conflict. But if we submit, I was going through a hard time, and my good brother Kevin Teamer, he said, John, God is trying to get you to submit. You trying to fix it. You trying to bear it. You trying to carry it. He's like, do what you are responsible to do, but submit to let God have his way. And if he calls you to move someplace else, if he calls you to go someplace else, if he calls you to act differently, then your job is to obey. And so we have to go ahead and stay with that. And that's why some of us don't have peace, is because we trying to handle everything ourselves, and we snapping off on people, and we giving that person a piece of our mind, and we giving that person a piece of our mind. But when we give person a piece of our mind, we're also sacrificing the peace of our heart. And God will give us perfect peace if we go ahead and we trust him and lean unto his understanding and lean into his way. And so he says, he told Saul, he's like, look, I need you to move from this place of being mournful over, I'm sorry, not Saul, Samuel. I need you to be moved from this place of being mournful over Saul. And what I need you to do is get your oil. And we know that when you get oil is in line and in sync, is synonymous with anointing, means that there's a calling about to take place, but it's also a symbol of worship. He says, you've been mourning long enough. It's time to get back to worship. And for us that are stuck in the past, for us that are thinking about all the things that we lost, we need to continue and get to a place of worship. Worship God, trusting God, believing in God, reestablishing relationship with God, because God is about to do something new, and he wants to do something new in our lives. But we have to get to a place where we worship and we honor and we trust him. And so I know we got a couple more minutes here, and we got to remember, when we're going to do what God is calling to do, there is potential for threats to come. There's potential for danger to come. But just like Samuel asked God, he's like, Saul going to kill me, because y'all know Saul had reached a point where Saul was out of his mind. Saul had reached a point where he was crazy. Saul had reached that that part where we say the streets had got him, and he was about that life. He was rowdy and about it. But God says, I got a plan for that. I got that under control. And we have to remember that when God is calling us to do something new, there will be challenges, but it's okay, because God has already gone before us, and God has already worked on our behalf, and God is watching us. He is sending two angels with us, and those angels are grace and mercy. He has sent grace to give us what unmerited favor, what we don't deserve, but he's also given us mercy for when we step off the path, to keep us all right and to keep us in line, to bless us despite what we do. And so if we operate in grace and mercy, everything will be all right. And so that's it. I know time is up. I kept y'all a little bit too long. Look, we up in the car. This is the money message recall on remote location. Have mercy. Look, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that blessed you. I hope that helped you. Look, if you want to go back and get the entire lesson, go back on our Facebook channel, Southside Church of Christ Durham Facebook channel, or on YouTube channel or Facebook, and you can get the whole sermon, get it in its entirety. And also, we weren't able to do the MMR last week, but go back and get the lesson by brother Dr. Mason. He sure enough dropped some nuggets on us as well. So go back and get it. Hey, it's homecoming season. We got another homecoming Sunday coming up this Sunday. Be in the places. Also, minister appreciation. So if you want to reach out to Brother Thomas and First Lady Brittany, go ahead and bless them for the work. If you have been blessed by the ministry, if you have been blessed by the word and blessed by the work that's going in Southside, go ahead and show your appreciation. Send cards, send a kind word, send some gift certificates, send some cash, whatever you want to do to show your appreciation, to encourage them to keep on in the work that God has called them to do. All right, family, I'm John Merriweather. God bless you. Appreciate y'all hanging out, dropping in the comments, and helping me out with this recap. We look forward to seeing you next week. Until next time, God bless you. And if you're looking for a spiritual community to be part of, Come on and join us at Southside everywhere. We have something spiritual every day to keep your soul empowered and keep you encouraged. You can join us at www.southsideew.com. We love to have you in the community and love to help you and serve you in that way. All right, family, take care. Thank y'all for the encouragement. We'll see you at the next appointed time. God bless you.